Dreamers, today I'm breaking down the Royal Family Princess deck that I shared recently on Instagram. In this video, I will show you what your opening hand should look like, how to keep your momentum going, what to do when big characters hit the board, and which cards you should mulligan at the start of your game. The game plan is simple. Flood the board with princesses, make them cheaper with Aurora, and keep the pressure on. It sounds like an easy win, but there are a few weaknesses you'll need to play around if you don't want to get crushed. For your opening hand, you have 3 options depending on what you draw: Daisy Duck, Vanellope, and Aurora. Daisy Duck is all about tempo. If you're up against a slower deck that needs time to set up, Daisy is your best bet. Having 2 or even 3 of her on the board forces your opponent to respond quickly, and that pressure makes it hard for them to catch up. On top of that, Daisy helps remove non-character cards, which is especially strong against decks that rely heavily on songs, like the current Powerline builds that are everywhere. She's less effective against character-heavy tempo decks. For example, Amethyst Steel can actually benefit from you playing Daisy, since they will use her effect for their own value. Vanellope on her own doesn't look like much, but she really shines once you shift her into the forecast version. And you can do that as early as turn 2. From then on, every time you play a princess, your opponent's characters lose strength until your next turn. And even if you don't get to use Vanellope's ability to weaken your opponent's characters, she is still very useful. She quests for 2 and has 4 willpower, which makes her harder to remove in the early game. And then there's Aurora. She is the most important card in this deck. When she quests, you pay less to play a princess or a queen, which allows you to flood the board far earlier than your opponent expects. Here's the dream opening. Aurora on turn 1, and then Tiana on turn 2. Tiana makes it very difficult for your opponent to challenge your characters, because unless they pay 3 extra ink, all of their challengers lose 3 strength. That usually means your early board will stay safe. Then on turn 3, you can shift Aurora into her 5-cost version. That version gives your entire board wards, which means your opponent can target your characters with actions, and that protection often wins you the game. Even if you don't have Tiana, it's still worth shifting Aurora. With 3 strength and 5 willpower, she is hard to remove and forces your opponent to deal with her quickly. And let's be honest, most people will try to get rid of Aurora as soon as possible. Better to shift her into something more powerful. So those are your opening choices. But how do you start building your board without leaving yourself wide open to removal? Your next plays are usually Ludwig, Anna, Hiram, Moana, or the Queen. These characters help you keep tempo, gain lore, and protect your board. Ludwig is great for removing songs or items. For example, if your opponent plays something like Under the Sea or any other card that bounces back low-cost characters, Ludwig can deal with it before it becomes a problem. And when he's banished, you can place him into your inkwell, which helps you play more characters on the next turn. That makes Ludwig a very efficient early play. Anna is a good lore generator. She gets extra lore whenever another hero is in play. She pairs really well with your early 1-drops like Vanellope or Aurora. With a bit of luck, you can even play her for free with Aurora's discount. And with 4 willpower, she often survives for more than 1 round, giving you steady lore while your opponent struggles to remove her. For example, if they drop a small challenger on turn 2, Anna usually survives and keeps questing for you. Hiram gives you quick lore, 3 per quest, which can push your score up early. But he almost never survives long, so timing matters. If your opponent already has enough characters to sing Under the Sea together, you might want to hold off playing him until it's safer. Otherwise, you risk losing him before you even get the lore. Moana is one of your stronger early characters. She quests for 2 lore, has 3 strength and 4 willpower, which means she can survive most early attacks and hit back. For example, if your opponent has a small character in play, Moana can step in, take the hit, and still stay on the board. That kind of power helps you keep building your board while they fall behind. The queen is your recycling engine. She lets you return a princess or a queen from your discard to your hands, which makes sure you don't run out of options. For example, if you have lost an Aurora or Tiana earlier, the queen can bring them back so you maintain pressure. That being said, she can also slow down your tempo. Against slower decks like Blurple, I often just ink the queen instead of playing her because lore matters more. You want to win the game before your opponent can start their game plan. By playing these characters wisely, you can control the early game and gain lore every turn. You're setting up your board while forcing your opponent to play catch up, which makes it much harder for them to recover. Now you have your early board control. But what can you do when bigger threats enter the board? When you get to the late game, you really want to win as fast as possible. The longer you play, the more likely you lose. The main cards you will look at are Prince Hans, Snow White, Moana, and Minnie Mouse. These are the ones that can push you to 20 lore and protect your board at the same time. Prince Hans is a sneaky last-minute win. This deck's Merlin Goat or White Rose. When he enters play, he gives you 1 lore right away when you have a princess or queen in play. That can be enough to close out the game if your opponent isn't expecting it. He also stays on the board even after effects like Under the Sea, which means you can use him more than once if needed. Snow White is perfect for when your opponent keeps taking out your characters by challenging. She can't be challenged, so she stays on the board and keeps generating lore no matter what's happening around her. Even if your opponent has a bunch of challengers out, Snow White can keep questing and getting you closer to 20 lore. Moana is your ultimate protector. She quests for 3 lore herself and she can ready all your other princesses. That means after she quests, your whole board is not exerted anymore, keeping your characters alive and not having to deal with the challenges. Minnie Mouse is your backup answer. She is great for removing big, dangerous characters like Maui Half Shark or Powerline. Her downside, she can only banish exerted characters, so you need to plan when to use her. Using these characters at the right time lets you win the game. Timing is important. You want to play them when they can make the biggest impact. Those are your late characters, but how do you keep the tempo going and don't run out of cards? Every turn counts in this deck. The more characters you have in play, the harder it is for your opponent to catch up. 2 cards are key to keeping the tempo going: Be Our Guest and Queen's Censor Core. Be Our Guest lets you look at the top 4 cards of your deck and add a character to your hand, which helps you select the character you want and need. What is also great about this card is that you can sing it with almost every card in the deck. Queen's Censor Core helps you find more princesses and queens by exerting and paying 2. And that's not everything. This item brings another value. It also gives you 1 lore per turn as long as you have 1 princess or a queen in play. And as you know, this deck runs a lot of it. These cards help you to keep your characters on the board. With your card draw secured, the next question is, which cards should you mulligan to give yourself the best possible start? Choosing the right cards to keep at the start can make or break your early game. I'm going to show you 5 examples and how I would handle them. In this hand, we have the Queen, Vanellope, Snow White, Be Our Guest, another Queen, 1 cost Aurora, and 5 cost Aurora. I would keep both Auroras and mulligan the rest, hoping to draw Tiana. You could also keep Vanellope and try to get the 1 cost version, but with 5 mulligans, I feel your chances of drawing Tiana are higher, and Tiana is really important for protecting your board. Looking at this opening, we can see Aurora, 2 Be Our Guest, Prince Hans, 2 Vanellope's, and Daisy. I would keep Daisy because you need a strong 1-drop. And I would also keep Vanellope. Then I would hope to draw the 1-cost Vanellope, more Daisies, or a 2-cost Hiram. This hand gives you tempo while keeping your options open for a fast start. This hand contains Be Our Guest, Moana, Daisy Duck, Prince Hans, Minnie Mouse, Aurora, and Ludwig. I would keep Aurora, Ludwig, Daisy, and Prince Hans. That gives you 2 1-drops for early board presence, an inkable play if you get unlucky, and removal with Ludwig. Prince Hans is great if you need to push for extra lore or protect your key characters. I feel this hand gives you flexibility for both tempo and early control. This draw, we're starting with Prince Hans, Ludwig, Anna, Queen Censor Core, Hiram, Be Our Guest, and Aurora. Here I would keep Queen Censor Core along with Hiram, Anna, or Ludwig. Queen Censor Core provides steady value every turn as long as a princess or queen is in play. For the 2-drop, it depends on your opponent. Ludwig for decks with a lot of songs or items, Hiram for hyper aggro play against slower decks, and Anna if you need steady lore. In our last hand, we have Daisy Duck, Anna, Be Our Guest, Tiana, Moana, Prince Hans, and Aurora. I would keep Daisy, Aurora, and Tiana, hoping to draw the 1-cost Aurora. Even if we don't draw her, we can still ink the 5-cost Aurora, making sure you have enough ink to play other characters. Mulligans are all about giving yourself the best chance to get the right characters in your hand. Think about what your deck needs on turn 1 and 2 and adjust depending on your opponent's deck and what cards you get on your opening draw. But even the best start can run into trouble. Let's look at the deck's strengths and weaknesses so you know what to watch out for. First, tempo is the deck's biggest advantage. By flooding the board early with cheap princesses and queens, you can keep your opponent on their toes, making it hard for them to catch up. The deck also has great lore generators with questers like Aurora, Vanellope, Anna, Hiram, Snow White, and Prince Hans that constantly push you towards the 20 lore. Board protection is another strong point, which might surprise some people, but Aurora's 5-cost version gives your board ward. Moana can ready your characters, and Tiana can reduce your opponent's character strength. That makes it difficult for your opponent to remove your key characters without spending extra resources. Card draw is essential. If you run out of cards in your hand, you will lose momentum very, very quickly. And that's why Be Our Guest and Queen Censor Core are so important. Without them, it's easy to fall behind since we don't have any characters, items, actions that draw us extra cards. Minnie Mouse removal is tricky. She can only banish exerted characters, but this deck doesn't have a way to exert characters yourself. That means you often have to wait or set bait by offering other characters. Under the Sea, your nemesis. This card can remove your board in one song. Keep an eye out if your opponent has enough characters to sync together or enough ink. Ludwig can be helpful to remove the song from your opponent's hands. The Queen can slow down your tempo. While she's great for recycling key characters, she doesn't lure for 2. Against slow decks, playing her can cost you tempo. Overall, the deck is great at tempo and winning fast. But you need to think about what strategy is best against your opponent's deck and understanding your timing and knowing when to ink or play certain cards. And that can make a difference between a fast win and falling behind quickly. Now that you know what the deck does, where it can struggle, let's have a look at the full deck. Here's the full Princess Aggro deck list. We're running almost 4 copies of everything except for Hiram. Since he's uninkable and usually gets banished quickly, playing 4 copies doesn't make much sense. However, I'm thinking about maybe dropping the Queen to 3 copies and adding an extra Queen Censor Core because not many decks run item removal right now, and that extra lore per turn actually helped me win quite often. If you want to try this deck yourself, you can find it on Dreamborn. Just scan the QR code to save it. Thank you for watching, and let me know in the comments what you think of this deck. Please like the video, and if you want to see more videos about Disney Lorcana, please subscribe. Bye!